This is The Spirit of Ecstasy, reviewing my favorite medical books. Got some real good books for you tonight. Functional Neuroanatomy of Man. Williams and Warwick. This is from the 36th edition of the 36th British edition. It's part of the British edition of Gray's Anatomy, and it was such a good section in there that they decided to take it out and make a book of its own out of it. If you, it's better if you can find one of these, the full Gray's Anatomy British edition in a 36th or later edition, and it will include the neural anatomy of man in it, and so it works out a whole lot better than the American edition does, which does not have the functional neural anatomy of man. And so the functional neural anatomy of man as a separate book comes like this, and you can get it from William B. Saunders if you're just wanting to study neural anatomy. And but it really does cover it. It really does. It really does cover the subject. I mean, it has a lot of good stuff in it. It's really extensive on the neural anatomy. It's just really good. Really extensive. And it's being the neurology section from Gray's Anatomy 35th British edition. But it's in all of the British editions from the 35th onward. 36th, 37th, and so on. Peter L. Williams and Roger Warwick, professors of anatomy, Guy's Hospital Medical School, University of London. And and it's put out by W.B. Sanders Company, Philadelphia. And the explanation when it was suggested that we should publish the neurology section from the 35th edition of Gray's Anatomy as a separate book, there was a very enthusiastic response. And this volume is presented as an addition not only to medical literature, but to that of the wider field of biology. The separate rigid disciplines of neuroanatomy and neurophysiology are merging, and an integrated approach to what can be termed neurobiology is now favored. Although the neurology section from Gray's Anatomy applies directly to human anatomy and physiology, the principles apply to the wider field of mammalian neurology. And so that's the explanation as to why that they have it as a separate book. And you can pause your video and read that if you want to, the whole thing. Okay. And the ISBN 0-72169450-0. Now these are the ones that you really have to watch to make sure you get the right ISBN number, because, especially Gray's Anatomy, because there's so many versions of that, and everybody's trying to put out a book with that name and capitalize on that name, so you've got to really have the right ISBN number, or you'll end up getting the wrong one. you'll think you're ordering the British edition and you'll be getting the American edition. ISBN 072160450-0. Okay. And then the full Gray's Anatomy, that's the British edition, W.H.B. Saunders Company. It's just a very, you can't beat it, and you can't beat the British edition for the extensive nature. I mean, they just really do cover the subject well. Let me see if I can move these, put this down where I can flip through it. Wait a minute. All these different illustrations. Really good. Very good book. Okay, and then the ISBN number part is 072169128-5. Zero 72169128-5. And that's an ideal book to get. I'm going to have to experiment around on this and get this where I can get that down on the pages better. I want to put that completely on the pages. Okay, that's not too bad right there. So that I can go through these books. Very good. Okay. Now the next one. Genetics in Medicine. Thompson and Thompson's Genetics in Medicine. Nussbaum, McInnes, and Willard. Put out by Saunders. ISBN 0-7216-0244-4. And Okay, in their preface to the first edition of Genetics in Medicine, published 35 years ago, James and Margaret Thompson wrote, "Genetics is fundamental to the basic sciences of preclinical medical education. It has an important applications to clinical medicine, public health, and medical research. With recognition of the role of genetics in medicine, has come the problem of providing a place for it in the undergraduate curriculum, a problem which is as yet only partly solved in most medical schools. This book has been written to introduce the medical student to the principles of genetics as they apply to medicine and to give him or her background for his or her own reading of the extensive and rapidly growing literature in the field. If his or her senior colleagues also find it useful, we shall be doubly satisfied." And we have chapters thusly: the role of genetics in medicine, classification of genetic disorders, chromosomal basis of heredity, the human chromosomes, the life cycle of a somatic cell, meiosis, human gametogenesis and fertilization, medical prevalence of mitosis, the human genome structure, tools of human molecular genetics, patterns of single gene inheritance, genetic variation in individual mutation and polymorphism, genetic variation in populations, gene mapping in the human genome, and principles of clinical cytogenetics, clinical cytogenetics disorders, and of the autosomes and the sex chromosomes, classical case studies illustrating genetic principles, principles of molecular disease, the molecular and biochemical basis of genetic disease, the treatment of genetic disease, genetics of the immune system, the major histocompatibility complex, MHC, the genetics of disorders with complex inheritance, genetics and cancer, genetic aspects of development, prenatal diagnosis, and genetic counseling and risk, and genetics in society, glossary and answer to problems. Very good book. And we have understanding 12 lead EKGs, a practical approach, which is very, very, very good. And this is put out by Pearson Prentice Hall. Brenda Beasley, BS, RN, EMT paramedic. Michael West, MS, RN, EMT paramedic. And what they do is they've got all these charts and graphs that shows you how just exactly how to read the EKGs correctly. How to interpret them. This kind of thing right here is really wonderful. You get to learn what it all means. They have they have some questions and answers and things like that. And then I have Understanding EKGs, a Practical Approach by Brenda M. Beasley. And Random, Beasley, BSR, and EMT.